Okay. Hi, my name is Natalie Newcomb. I'm a programming officer here at the Korea Society of New York. On behalf of everyone at the Korea Society, I'd like to welcome you here to our joint Young Professionals in Contemporary Culture program, An Evening with Maria Yoon. We'd like to thank the director of Maria the Korean Bride, Maria Yoon, and our moderator for the evening, Dr. Laurel Kendall, for their time and participation in tonight's event. Many of you may have heard about Maria the Korean Bride, but for those of you who have not, tonight is a great opportunity to hear about it directly from the artist and to better understand the project with the help of Dr. Kendall, who has written extensively on the subject of Korean marriage in her publication, Getting Married in Korea of Gender, Modernity, and Consumption. Ms. Yoon's project elaborates on the marital expectations of many first and second generation Korean and Korean American women face in contemporary culture and challenges those expectations through a cross-country journey as an imagined bride in traditional dress. Before we move on to the preview of the documentary, which I'm sure you all are very excited to see, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our moderator for the evening, Dr. Laurel Kendall. Dr. Kendall is a curator of Asian ethnographic collections at the American Museum of Natural History and chair of the anthropology division at AMNH, as well as an adjunct professor at Columbia University. She's written extensively about shamans, issues of gender, and the cultural construction of tradition and modernity in South Korea. Kendall recently published Shamans, Nostalgias in the IMF, South Korean Popular Religion and Motion, describing changes in the Korean shaman world over 30 years. Kendall has authored or edited seven other books on Korea, including Getting Married in Korea. She first went to Korea in 1970 as U.S. Peace Corps volunteer. So please join me in welcoming our moderator for the evening, Dr. Kendall.
Thank you, Natalie. And it's really an honor to be here, nonetheless because I'm not used to anymore to being included in a crowd of young professionals, past that point a while ago. As Natalie said, I wrote a book that was published in 1996 called Getting Married in Korea. And I want to use that experience as a sedge into this evening's program and into Maria Yoon's wonderful, provocative project. I wrote that book because when I went to Korea as a Peace Corps volunteer, young unmarried woman, and then I went back to Korea as a Fulbrighter to do a doctoral dissertation on shamans, still unmarried, not quite as young, I got the impression that the whole Korean nation was obsessed with the idea of matrimony. It was something that came up in conversation with virtually everybody I met all the time. And, you know, along with it, the older I got, certain assumptions about, you know, what was wrong with me, what was wrong with my mother for not getting me fixed up with a nice man, wasn't I setting my sights too high? So after those experiences, for a second project, Safely Married, I decided, well, why don't I study Korean weddings? Why don't I study marriage, modern marriage? And in fact, as I had thought, it was terribly easy because virtually every Korean I encountered had an opinion on the subject. And whether they were lifelong single or married or prospective married, they had engaged the topic in some practical, experiential way. And it was that experience that I tried to capture in writing. What I never realized when I published, is how popular this book would be among Korean Americans. And I get comments like, "You helped me understand my parents." And it's kind of proof of the centrality of the marriage obsession in Korea that we have this intriguing project by Maria Yoon, Maria the Korean Bride. Maria Yoon is a Korean-born artist who lives and works in New York City. She is a conceptual artist. She is an accomplished Korean-American conceptual artist. She holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Cooper Union. She is a recipient of the Alex Katz Tuition Award and a summer residency at the Shokagan School of Painting and Sculpture. She is accomplished and has, she will probably tell you, or you'll see in the credits for her film, been very, very successful in securing all sorts of foundation support for her work. Now, the work itself, The Korean Bride, she presents herself in this project as an embodied Korean bride. She's not only wearing the clothes, but you see the habitus of the bride in some of those pictures that we're flicking through. So this embodiment of Korean culture, and then the Korean American part comes in. The embodiment of Korean culture meets a very venerable American artistic tradition, the road trip. And this is kind of the ultimate road trip because she carries her bride persona to 50 states. And I won't say more. Maria and her art will speak for themselves. Please welcome Maria Yoon. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. First, thank you to the Korea Society for hosting this venue. And thank you to all of you for braving the rain and coming out tonight. Truly, it's an honor. It's a celebration for me that I've actually successfully gotten married 50 times in 50 states to 50 different people. So 5 has become a very important number for me. 5, 5, 5, 50, 50, 50. So that said, I want to showcase my latest wedding, which took place in the heart of Times Square in New York City. And my 50th husband is here tonight. So, wait, Mom, can you just give a wave? Okay. So I wanted to share that with you. And then after that will be my short revised documentary, which is still in making. So you get to see where I'm really going with this, even if I've completed the 50 wedding journey in 50 states. And we'd be happy to answer any questions after. So that's it. Thanks again.
All right, we got a woman on the phone here whose goal is to marry 50 men in 50 states. Maria, now how many times have you been married already?
49 times in 49 states.
So here we are, heart of Times Square, 3 o'clock, nervous as hell. I just got my makeup done. What do you think? Professionally done. Hair and makeup. Do I look like a different person now? I should have done this long time ago in 49 states.
Honestly, the first time I heard about this project was when I was here playing poker with my friend Bob, who became the best man. And he said, you know, I'm buying 20 tickets to marry Maria the Korean Bride.
Thank you for entering the 50th groom lottery for Maria the Korean Bride. Golly. So these were the tickets that came in the mail, and I've kept them because I was really... And Ram bought 1 ticket.
I work with a lot of artists from many fields, poets to filmmakers, visual artists, and one of the things I always emphasize is you got to finish your project, your art. It doesn't count unless it's done. And that was partially one of my driving forces of participating, but secondly, you know, being a single Indian male, being the oldest male in my family, obviously the pressure has been exerted on me from my folks throughout the years, and I'm still single. So here I'm still available.
Because I was totally into this project. I just thought that it was a way of dealing with marriage that was refreshing, and brought it into public life, brought into a public political sphere what has been, the most private and glorious of moments, the union of two people and the divorce rate and the abuse rate, and all goes to belie this. And your project, the Maria the Korean Bride project, was both a breath of truth and hyperbole that won my heart.
When you called and you said, Ram, you're the groom, and I said, what? How did that happen?
Drumline, please.
Okay, what's the number?
380433.
So if Andrew doesn't show, then I have Brian and or Ram to be on standby.
And when Maria, announced that the first person couldn't get a flight back, okay, I said that's an omen. And when I heard the second person wanted to have a date with Maria before the wedding, and she said, no, I don't do dates before I get married, I said, okay, this is the woman for me.
The world was walking by this incredible cake, and the rent's too damn high. Minister was in just fantastic form. The rain held off, and the police seemed to be okay with us.
49 times in 49 states. I understand your 50th is coming up in May, right?
That is correct, in New York City.
Why?
Yeah, what is the point of all this?
Why not?
Well, I guess,
All right, let me ask you this. Are these official weddings? Are you actually married to this person?
It's going through the motion.
After marriage one, I mean, did you have a definite goal from the very beginning to marry 50 men in 50 states?
Go two steps back.
Take a few steps back. Everybody go back a little bit.
Two steps back. It's too crowded. Okay, that's good. Hold on to that. I still can't find my parents, but show must go on.
Ladies and gentlemen, please gather around. We are about to start the wedding of Maria the Korean bride and her 50th groom, Ram. As most of you know, or maybe some of you have no idea, that Maria the Korean bride is a New York artist. She has been working on this project for 9 years. Woo. Woo. She has married a groom in 49 states. And she's about to conclude her 9-year-long project with her 50th groom here in New York City, which is her hometown. And where better in New York City than Times Square? Please help me welcome Jimmy McMillan, who will be officiating the ceremony today. So give it up for Jimmy McMillan.
Bride and groom, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. We're gathered here today in the heart of New York City, which is called Times Square, where the rent is too damn high.
Yes!
The Korean bride, you have been traveling all across the country. All across the country. And you pull a raffle to pick the groom that you were to marry. A $5 raffle had provided us with rum. Now, Maria the Korean bride, do you promise to be compassionate and worthy of friendship and good times and bad?
Yes, I do.
You do.
Before these witnesses, I vow to love you.
I want you to take that ring, give it to the groom.
Thank you, sir.
And with that ring, you shall place it on her finger. And I hope you never lose it. I hope you never take it off. And I hope that another state don't decide to become a union of the United States of America. You may have to do this again. But congratulations, may you kiss the bride.
How about our ring?
So everyone,
Now we'll form the human ring.
if I could hold her hand.
Holding hands, everybody holding hands.
A final word to the ring. I have something to say with my big mouth. I just can't keep quiet. What a great day. We all were scared last night thinking this was going to be the end. I didn't think this wedding would take place today. But when I woke up this morning, I realized that it wasn't the end. At occasions like this, I realize that this is just the beginning.
Yes.
And I know there will be many more.
Yes.
Because marriage is contagious. Someone is about to propose to someone right now.
I can feel it. I can feel it.
I feel it behind me.
Put your hands on high! Maria bride!
Thank every one of you for coming. There is a reception happening downtown in Tribeca. I have lovely interns around, so I hope that you could spot them. You could ask them for direction.
Stand behind Maria. Get in the picture. Behind Maria. This way. To your right. To your right.
In the beginning, I really didn't know what I was doing, although I did wanted to carry the conversation beyond my mom and dad, dinner table.
Yeah.
And them, interrogating me and saying, why aren't you married?
Uh-huh.
So I wanted to carry that conversation to other folks in America.
The 50th man you'll be marrying in May in New York City. What's his name?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't know. I'm actually selling a raffle ticket, $5 each. And the winner will be announced a week before the event.
Well, Maria, it's very, very interesting what you're attempting to do. Now, once you're done with number 50, are you done?
Well, I'll be making a feature documentary, so I could really spread the news.
Okay,
Very,
okay,
very
very
good.
interesting, very interesting.
Pleasure talking to you this morning, and best of luck in New York.
Thank you very much.
Charming young lady there. 827 New
Now
Country.
she's charming. You thought she was crazy when we made the call, though.
Congratulations, you inspire us. You've been a pleasure to work with and be around and just have you be a part of our life.
Do it again? If I win another ticket, yeah.
어땠어요 오늘? Beautiful. It was beautiful.
아니, 네가 일반적인 그런 얘기보다도 꿈꾸라 그럴까 이렇게 저기 어떤 그 마음속에 색 같은 게 보이는 것 같아.
I'm glad my parents are here to celebrate this event.
Conclusion to a very long journey that you've had, and I hope that this closing of a chapter for yourself also affords you the opportunity to look back on it and really understand what you went through, and at the same time look forward to what your next project is going to be as well.
You had a great turnout. We were afraid it was going to rain, and it didn't rain, thank God, because it was raining in the morning, and it didn't rain. So, the heavens spared Maria good weather for her wedding. And, like I said in my speech to the group, I really feel your project. I really do, because I, too, am an unmarried Asian American woman, and I, too, have been getting the marriage pressure for, decades.
Through the miracles of modern media, I am able here to finally read the poem that I wrote for Ram and Maria, for the final chapter, on the final day, for the wedding to end all weddings. We are gathered here today because we are not gathered anywhere else today. The sight of the deed, they said, never could be done on account of they could never figure on how the 49 others could be undone, but it's all in fun. Not really. This wedding for my pal Ram, the groom, is number one and only. For Maria, the Korean bride, number 50, and time to stop counting. Today, marriage itself takes on new meaning, absolving all from the social contract, except for the essence of love and art. Maria and Ram, till life doth them part.
Okay, we thought we'd have a little bit of conversation, and then you'll see a longer piece that gives you more of the road trip. And I guess I wanted to start this out with one small observation that you could maybe dispute, and then, but the floor is open. Questions to Maria. We all have questions for Maria. But it occurred to me when we talked last week and also seeing the film, how in some sense the Korean American bride position is a double whammy. Because there's, on the Korean side, this tremendous pressure. But where is that pressure coming from? It's coming in part from the pressure the family itself feels, that mom and dad feel, that mom and dad have this deep burden to see that you're set in life, that you've got a good man, that your life is launched, and they're being judged like you're being judged. And there's this whole project. If you're Korean in Korea and you want to be married or feel you ought to be married, people will facilitate it. It'll happen. It may not be the person you want, but it's sort of like real estate. You sometimes have to settle for, a little less, and it's the real estate agent's job to make you see yourself living in that apartment that's just not quite the one you fantasized about. And the matchmaker basically does the same thing. Now, the American view, the burden of attracting is all on us. And when we're single, the assumption is we just have, there's something deficient in the individual subject self. And I think some of what makes the Korean American vision doubly burdensome is that there's this American sense that marriage is a judgment on you, and this Korean sense that this is a family project and all this pressure is on you. And I think I sense some of that in the conversation and in the motivation to do this piece in and of itself, the bringing those words together. I don't know if you want to respond to that, and then we can take a couple of questions from the floor to you.
But you're right. I mean, I'm thankful for my mom and dad. They're the main inspiration for this project. If pressure was not there, I wouldn't have thought of this project. So in that perspective, I'm grateful. At the same time, pressure is enormous. Pressure from women versus men may be slightly different, but having to fulfill that obligation, and you'll see that repeating over and over again in my documentary. My mother basically said, it's your job on earth, it's your duty to fulfill what you are given to do. And I said, what is that? And then she said, get married and reproduce. So it's that kind of pressure that I didn't know how to discuss with them any longer beyond screaming and yelling and fighting, not physical fighting, but verbal fighting, arguments. So so I think that's inevitable. That was my main catalyst for this project. But at the same time, I wanted other people to relate, other Americans. Although initially I planned for Asian Americans to really understand where I'm going with this, but I realized it's much bigger than that. So you're going to see that how it's evolved and how it's constantly changing as I am sharing what I've learned with you. But ironically, what's so funny, Dr. Kendall, when initially Korea Society suggested Dr. Kendall, I thought, oh, brilliant, because I read her book on marriage as I was doing this project. I remember going to Minnesota, and other folks were asking me, how did people got married olden days? And I'm thinking, shamanism, matchmaking, and I realized that answer was not good enough. So I thought, oh, I need a little bit more than just that. So I picked up I Googled Amazon, and Dr. Kendall's book was the first thing to pop up. And who knew? So I think it was meant to be.
Okay, speaking of matches. All right, can we take maybe 3 questions, and there's a microphone on the floor? And then we'll go back to more of the road trip. If there are no questions, we can go right to the road trip. Should we do that?
Don't be shy, you guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, shout or go to the microphone.
Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you so much for coming. This is just really interesting to watch. Being an Indian American, I have identified with Rom's viewpoint. Okay, it's on now. Okay. I've always thought about the whole idea of matchmaking, and my parents were also very eager to pair me up with someone and get me settled. And I think Korea is a nation that's really kind of very traditional, but modernizing at the same time. And I've always felt that kind of view has really come from back in the day when, a woman of 18 years old, she really needed to have some security and have a breadwinner of the family take her in. And it was really like you really need to get married because who's going to provide for you? You're going to otherwise be a burden on my family. You know, how are we going to provide for you? What is society going to think of you? Nowadays, it's a completely different situation. If anything, we are overachievers. We go on to get our masters, our MBAs, our PhDs, and we see that as a priority than, you know, getting married. And so, could you talk a little bit about that and maybe just respond to that?
I don't know. I feel like Dr. Kendall could answer this better. I mean, olden days, I mean, yes, even in America, I was telling my other friends, Henderson, Nebraska, population of 900. Even, you know, I met a couple where they knew each other since elementary school, and they own a cattle ranch. And I don't know, I felt like, my gosh, their life is like the fairy tale, but at the same time, they need to depend on one another to survive. And that's their livelihood, you know? And I was surprised that they only had 2 kids, because if I'm a cattle ranch owner and I need cheap labor, I'm going to just start popping. and then the lady of the house, she was really honest with me. She said she had a hard time getting pregnant, what have you. So I really appreciate her honesty, but at the same time, I couldn't help going back to the olden, you know, a long time ago, and connecting to my culture. And yes, Korea, it's changed now. And I've heard that Korean girls are getting married later in life, which is fascinating for me. And I didn't realize that when I initially started this project 9 years ago. But at the same time, those of us who immigrated here to the United States in the 70s, 80s, and I feel like the pressure is even bigger than that, because that sense of, you know, your culture, your heritage, even if you moved, you want to continue that. You don't want to lose it. So I think my dad was holding on to that, and he expected me to fulfill that obligation because I'm a firstborn. And so I understand that. I understand where he comes from, and then, of course, as I was hearing other people's stories in America, they had a lot of similarities as well. But I don't know if it's the pressure, but I realized at the end of the day, families' expectation and pleasing them really plays a lot in their factor in deciding. So to me, that was very fascinating. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
yeah, I can add a little ethnography to that. It was very interesting the way this is posed. You know, professional women who have lives and identities outside the structure of family, and I think that's very important. And it's something we're seeing globally, where there are professional women postponing marriage, some deciding, well, thank you, no, I'd rather be doing what I'm doing, and some saying, well, I'm in no rush to do this. But what's behind that? And when we think of, all right, Koreans marrying the way they were marrying 20 years ago, the assumption is that the women's side has to provide a large dowry, expenses, compensation, because they're investing in the guy's career. The guy's career is setting the sense of social status, the sense of identity, the kind of life the woman is going to have. Now, traditionally, it was more like Nebraska. There was, on the one hand, yes, a woman has to be embraced by a husband's family to have a moral identity. Her identity is as a daughter-in-law, as a wife, as a mother. But who do you choose? You're not choosing traditionally on the basis of beauty. Beauty is for the stuff you do outside of marriage. You're choosing on the basis of someone who's resourceful. If you're a peasant, you want a woman who's tough and strong and frugal. If you're a high young-born aristocrat, you want a woman who's a good manager, who can manage this very complex family estate, because guys don't want to deal with things, practical stuff. They want to be philosophizing, and it was women who managed the slaves and managed the rents and managed a lot of stuff in the inner room. We know this from social historians, with slaves running in and out. So the choice of a resourceful woman across the different levels of Korean society was very important. And what really changed that was modern arrangements of employment, where you have a housewife, defined by her being the mistress of consumption, and a guy who goes out to work and is the master of production. And people think of that as traditional. But it's really a modern condition, an early modern condition. And we need to know that because it helps to free us a little bit.
Hi, I grew up in Europe, so for me, this kind of family pressure is unknown, basically. So I was, through my studies and talking to different people throughout my life, I realized that the pressure exists, especially in Asia. What I'm interested in particular is the degree of that pressure from culture to culture, most specifically between comparison between Japan, Korea, and China. How would you see that if you got some feedback? And I've heard already a few sentences here indicated that in America itself, there is still this pressure somewhere there. I wasn't aware of.
But read differently.
Yes, but yeah, okay. So maybe you can go along.
Okay. I would say, as an ethnographer, that Korea, China, Japan, when you read the literature, the anxieties are very, very similar because these are very family-bonded, family-defined cultures. And the pressure on women to marry by a certain age, if you look at the literature on Japan, there's this stuff about the woman who Christmas cake smells really good, but New Year's cake, i.e. age 24 is a good time to get married, Christmas cake. The New Year cake is a little stale by the 31. And you also see in all three of these societies some sort of that the whole apparatus of society is very concerned with weddings. That if there's a certain class or category of people who have trouble getting married, like rural bachelors, or people who don't have families to support them, there'll be social institutions, social welfare institutions set up to help them get married, because it's a good thing to help people get married. There's a Korean proverb, something like, if you matchmake for 3 people, you go to heaven. I mean, 3 different couples. There's also a proverb that says, if you do well, it's 3 cups of wine, and if you fail, 3 slaps on the face. They turn on the matchmaker. You might want to add to that.
You're on the same line. I was thinking of the Confucius. Yeah. And I talk about Confucius master all the time, even if he's Chinese. Although you've enlightened me, Dr. Kendall goes, well, there's a debate that Confucius master could have been Korean. I'm just saying, for Koreans out there. So
nobody says that in print. You hear this late at night among Koreans.
So having to set that, I think that is heavily embedded in us, communal, dinner gathering. When you go out for Chinese food or dim sum, everything's right there in the middle of the table. And to me, it says a lot about our culture. It's not about you're yourself alone. It's about family gathering. You're thinking about your uncle and aunt, your grandkids, your grandparents. So even the hanbok, all the layers, my goodness, I couldn't wait to take my clothes off after the wedding. And I said I do, because you have to wear the sogo, the inner layer, and the jogori, and the chima, which is the top, and the skirt, and then the jacket and the headdress. Where did all of that come from? It's because of Confucius. Learning to be proper, obey your parents, respect your elders, fulfill your duty, like my mama always been telling me. So I think it links to all of that. So the pressure comes from all of that, Chinese, Korean, Japan. Although I think Japanese are most liberal-minded compared to the Koreans even today, but that's my personal opinion.
One more question. Can you go to the mic?
Yeah.
Hi. I was interested to see if any guys had expressed their story. I'm from the Midwest. I come from a very unique televangelist family. At the age of 21, I was arranged to be married. I remember always knowing who I was going to marry, the youngest of 6. I didn't do it because particularly my father got sick. And I remember seeing the deterioration of my mother. She had no life of her own. So for me, that was the worst 2 years of my life because I lost all my friends, but I'm happier now. So I just wanted to know, did any guys express themselves? Because coming from the Southern Midwest and Christian background, I know that it's really, really hard for guys as well.
Gosh, I mean, can I be really honest with you guys? what they say on tape versus what they say without the camera is very different. And I mean, you're asking to remember 50 husbands in 50 states, and they're like all almost blur to me. But at the same time, I think they had some sort of pressure that they wanted to relate and they wanted to help. Either they didn't get it at all, and that's why they participated. I could say as far as my Massachusetts bride and San Francisco bride, because same-sex marriage was a heavy-duty topic. When I first got married in Massachusetts, it was the first state that got legalized. So it was a very moving thing for her that I went out of my way to marry a lesbian. San Francisco, at the same time, they were going through Proposition 8. So it was also a very challenging issue. So in that perspective, it was interesting here, their point of view as a gay couple. I mean, as a gay, lesbians and gay. Midwesterns, I can't say. It was, although I could tell you that I had most difficult time convincing them to marry me. They just didn't want to do that. So I don't know how much beer I actually drank, but that's what I'm thinking right now. What did they say, off camera? Yeah, so it probably will come back to me later on, but yeah, but my brides, they're the ones they popped up the most.
If it's a quick comment.
Yeah, quick comment. I think for the man, the pressure is to propagate the name, so to speak, continue the family name. And that's at least the pressure I can see from Western perspective. I don't know how this is in the Far East.
Absolutely. Yeah, yes, and a very articulate burden to continue the family and to produce a male heir. Okay, let's go back to the road, and you'll have more of a chance to continue the conversation with Maria after you've seen a little more of the road trip.
So I just want to say this is still revised. It's an ongoing thing. So, but I just wanted to show you where I'm going with my documentary because that's still in making.
자기 딸이 윌리 결혼을 하기를 원하지.
I have married Diana Ross, impersonator in Las Vegas. I married a teacher in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I married actually a cowboy singer in South Dakota. And I married a 300-pound Polynesian in Hawaii named Spam. There's so many others.
I think it was Vegas, where we were sitting there at the drag show. There's a drag show there called La Cage aux Folles, where all these guys dress as famous, performers. There's a Cher, there's a Bette Midler, there's a Barbra Streisand, and Maria was really taken by the Diana Ross.
After seeing her, Love at First Sight with Diana Ross, I needed to ask her. So I went to the backstage around the corner. I made a proposal, not knowing where I was going with this. And to my surprise, she said yes. And that's where my wedding performance began.
Who, by the way, when they got married, was in full regalia. And when we went to the church, the minister was in full Elvis regalia. I mean, it's one of the few places where I was the one who was underdressed, which is not a normal thing for me.
And then to go out candles you hold. For this one night, to always burn very, very bright. Look at each other. Holding hands. Now all
She's turned the tables around on this bride and groom thing, like she goes out and seeks grooms to marry.
It was down the glen came a
Can we seal the deal with like a kiss on the cheek maybe?
Honesty, open-heartedness.
Paying the bills, housekeeping, house cleaning.
Fun-loving, sense of humor, playful, heart energy.
In reading the multiple scripts that I've prepared for my couples,
it kind of made me reevaluate my own marriage and realize that a lot of the important aspects of a marriage to make a marriage last were missing in my own marriage. And so therefore, I am getting divorced. We've gathered here today to witness and celebrate the wedding of Colin Carroll and Maria, the Korean bride.
Okay, so this is the story. I've been driving around trying to look for a manual oil pumper. I think it's called jackhammer or hammer oil. I forget the terminology. Anyhow, later on for that education component. I was driving on Interstate 16, which leads to the main highway. And I guess God was calling. There's one just pumping by itself and it's actually working. So I'm like, I think that pump is supposed to be my groom, so I'm gonna marry it here in Oklahoma, where oil is plenty and gas price I've seen as low as $3.72. So you can't beat that compared to New York, right? Sometimes I wonder, why am I doing this? I'm not gonna look as pretty as the other states because I'm doing it out of rush. First of all, he gave me permission to marry his oil pump.
That's right.
Okay, and Stan. And you're Michael?
This is Michael.
Michael. And Stan also just invited me to his grandson's rodeo tournament.
It's called a play day is what it's called.
Play
day.
Play day, but they ride on a rodeo.
Yeah, what he does, he rides a horse and runs barrels, pole bends, flag race, goat ties,
all kinds of Midwestern stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, and I just been invited, so I'm gonna go.
There you go.
Okay, good. And here's the Midwestern hospitality. I'm drinking Bud Light or Bud Ice.
Bud Ice.
As I am getting direction.
To Bristol, Oklahoma.
Bristol, Oklahoma. Okay.
Okay, this is Highway 16.
Yes, I'm on it.
You curve on around. Boy, you smell good.
Thank
and then you'll come through a little town called Slick.
It's called Sweat.
That's sweet sweat.
Okay.
We are here today because you, Maria, the Korean bride, and your Arizona groom Vlad have chosen each other. Your being together is an inspiration, and it proves that Craigslist does work. Hold it to your heart. You want to say a few words? The power of the spoken word!
Speechless right now.
That's good enough.
Goodbye to civilization. Ready? Okay. Hi.
In Maria's email note to me, it said that she wanted to marry either a dog musher or a fisherman. And then I started thinking, okay, who do I know who is a dog musher or a fisherman? And coincidentally, the week before, I had met my first dog musher personally.
When I heard about the project, I was made aware of it, and then I said, yeah, I would do it. And then you proposed to me via email on Thanksgiving, and I said yes. It's just one of those, like, be careful what you wish for.
Oh.
This beautiful spot is the ideal setting for a beautiful wedding. Alaska is the place to see flowing glaciers, rugged mountains, abundant wildlife, and vast ocean. And today, it is the place to see the wedding of Maria the Korean bride and rookie Iditarod musher Emil Churchin.
So when you were coming out here, I said you should marry a woman. California is that there are thousands of couples who got married legally who now are in limbo.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join in unholy matrimony. Jenny the surfer and Maria the Korean bride. Ironically, here in San Francisco, where the women are strong and the boys are pretty, as well as the rest of California, same-sex marriage has been made illegal.
I guess one of the things that interested me about your project is, you know, as a gay person, is that I think that one of the things that doesn't get said as much, when there's all this debate about the marriage issue and, you know, same-sex marriage and so forth, and it gets polarized as like conservatives are against it and like liberals and gay people are for it. But there's also a lot of disagreement within the gay community about the value of marriage. To me, what's more interesting is challenging the idea that same-sex marriage is like, that is the vanguard of gay liberation or, you know, gay rights, instead of looking at like, well, why are we tying stuff like healthcare to, you know, marriage? Like, why do you have to be married in order to get health insurance? Why do you have to be married to get Social Security benefits like that? So those kinds of things, tying those things to marriage, I think, are the things we need to be questioning.
By the power vested in me by the state of California and the Universal Life Church website, I now pronounce you married. You may now kiss or whatever you real girls do.
Ready out there? Let's go. Excellent.
It's all yours.
We have come together to celebrate the union of Maria, the Korean bride, and John. Let this be a day of happiness, possibility, and celebration for John and Maria, the Korean bride, who are coming together to demonstrate the wonder of love through their wedding union. It is my great pleasure that I present to you for the first time as a couple, John and Maria, the Korean bride, in the state of Washington. Congratulations.
Kiss the bride.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We met on a beach, on Barrington Beach, actually, where we are very close to where we are today. I think it was after walking into her house and her pet turkey attacked me. She had a pet turkey. And,
Penelope.
Yes. And I ran in the house and said, you know, we've got to find our own house, and I ask you to marry me. Neither one of us require a lot of maintenance, which is probably keeps us going the most. Yeah. Grandparents were not overly enthusiastic about me marrying a non-Jewish person. 33 years later, we're still together.
That bread's going to taste like shit.
No, we're not going to eat it. Just don't, whatever you do, three of you.
That's all right.
Are we looking okay, Kathy?
Take two.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here to join this man and this woman.
And I saw that you're coming soon, Honolulu. Oh, okay, simple, you know. Come say hi when you come here. We'll help you find a groom. I asked you what you wanted. You said single, Polynesian, big guy. I said, okay, I know exactly who to ask.
We will prepare for the ceremony. We ask that you come from within your higher self at this time and to feel the aloha within your heart. Stan and Maria, I would like to welcome you to this joyous occasion. The word for love in Hawaiian is aloha. Mai ho'oku'u oi ia mākou I ka ho'owaliwali ia mai. E ho'opakele no na I ia mākou I ka ino. no kamea, no ke au kumi, a me kamana, a me ka ho'onani ia, a mao loa aku. Amen. By the authority vested in me, by Keakua, I am happy to pronounce Spam and Maria as friends with a deep aloha in their heart for one another.
How was it for you marrying me?
Some trip. Never been married before. It was neat. It was neat.
And now that you had your practice run, do you think you would ever consider?
Nah. We had discussed trying to do this as a pig picking and trying to cook the pig and do the whole thing. And as it turns out, you know, we wound up in one of the nicest barbecue restaurants in North Carolina, which means it's one of the nicest in the world.
Friday night, he told me, I'm getting married on Sunday. I said, no, you're not. He said, yes, I am. So I decided to come because I'll probably never see him marry again. It's not going to happen. He's not the marrying kind. I just don't think it.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the ceremony that will unite Maria and David in marriage. We gather here today to celebrate their union and to honor their commitment of not simply gazing at one another, but looking outward, together, and in the same direction.
And it was very good. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Did you find it
very
moving?
Sweet? Yes, I did.
It was moving? I found
it was moving. The vows were very good.
David, please repeat after me. Maria, I will love you until we reach the midnight.
Maria, I will love you until we reach the midnight.
I will love you just as long as the entire hog takes to roast.
I will love you to the very moment that this ceremony ends.
Maria and David, you have committed here today to share your lives with each other. This relationship is symbolized through the Pitt's pulled pork sandwich, known for some as the best of the best in the barbecue world. As the two of you take a bite of this sandwich, let it be a reminder that although you may perceive things very differently, being right is never more important than being happy.
Here, here. Bye-bye.
Maria and David, in the presence of God, your family and friends today, you have spoken the words and performed the rites which unite your lives. It is my legal right as a minister and my honor and privilege to declare you husband and wife. You may now kiss your bride.
I want the meat.
I began this project when I officially hit 30 years old. And something about being 30, unmarried, Asian American woman, it means something to my parents and my community. I think Asians in general, we feel pressure to please our parents and making sure that everyone's happy. And sometimes you could get caught or stuck in trying to please them over yourself. The reaction of this project, it varies from people to people. Some people love it, some people hate it. Some people don't get it at all, like my own dad. He doesn't get it. But at the same time, it is the dialogue. It's me provoking people to think. And what that means, before jumping into things, just stop and think about it. And at the same time, is that what your heart is telling you?
So I guess I want people to take decisions more seriously.
I definitely think there is more pressure placed on Asian women than on Asian men to get married. Obviously, there's a situation now in Korea where men are having a harder time finding wives, but it's still not as big of a stigma, and men still have more time.
It has been a battle to marry to someone who I want.
I didn't realize it was a big deal for my parents, and I think they come from maybe a little bit more traditional perspective. So they see divorce even more negatively than maybe somebody living in Korea right now. So especially since I'm the only son and everything, they just thought, you know, there's no way I'm gonna marry my son to like divorced couple.
Because like other Korean parents, you know, they had a lot of expectation about my future husband.
Korea is a really remarkable country with this. It has this ability to, I mean, it can bring out the best in you, but it can also completely make you doubt everything you've ever believed in. And it doesn't take that long. It meant nothing to them that I had this prestigious grant from the US government and they were paying for me to spend an entire year in Korea to do research. That was nothing because I wasn't married.
Honored to present to you for the very first time, Maria the Korean Bride and Vlad.
From the heart of Iowa, may I present Mr. and Ms. Maria the Korean Bride.
I now present you Stalwart and Maria the Korean Bride.
With the shirt that I bought from the Miller gift shop. And this is going to be my invisible husband.
Being married for a day is fantastic.
I have come to join Maria, the Korean Bride, and Alicia.
Bless, O Lord, this potato and this football.
Do you promise to load the gun, bait the hook, clean the game, and give your bride the comfy seat in the deer blind?
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. We're gathered here today in the heart of New York City, which is called Times Square, where the rent is too damn high.
Yes!
Death and Maria the Korean Bride, because you have committed yourselves to each other by exceeding your vows, I pronounce you husband and wife.
Death, you may kiss your bride.
All right, guys, so we're here for the Korean Bride, and I think it's pretty cool that she got married in 50 states, right?
I don't get it, though.
That's pretty cool.
What do you mean you don't get it? I don't get why. What's up with 50 weddings?
Hey, listen, it was a goal that she wanted to accomplish, and she did. I'm pretty happy to be here making a cake for her.
She's beautiful.
Yeah.
She is
I
beautiful.
don't know if I'm going to get married once, never mind 50, but...
Yeah, I don't know about 50.
Well, look, now, you know, after this one, you could be 51 or 52, no?
That's true.
I hope I get married as much times as you. It looks like fun. Love, Anya.
The way that Maria, as an artist, is directing the wedding and the party here is so much the opposite of the way that we think of the demure bride. It's incredible to watch the bride be in charge, and I think that sort of wraps up the whole deal.
You actually did 50 marriages in 50 states. That's no small thing. The amount of labor, infrastructure, friends that you have who helped you out. What an amazing thing.
It's the only performance art piece that I know of that deals directly with marriage, and seems like raises some questions and makes you think, and it's funny. And
I think Maria's project is terribly, terribly important because she's been going around the country making people think twice about marriage. So many people in this country take marriage for granted. People who can't do it want to, and those who can do it too frequently and don't take it very seriously.
In fact, it wasn't until very recently that Rory and I were able to get married ourselves.
Maria, it's number 50 here.
Thank you for picking my ticket out of the raffle. I'm very honored. It's been a lot of fun.
Marriage, I think, to each person is different. But to me, it's a special, special gift that I've been given. Good luck, Maria, with your project.
I think our project is so timely because with globalization, you know, everything is traditions are waning away, and I like the way she questions it and takes a look at it without you know, really passing judgment.
I've known you forever, since we met back in 2001, I believe, and I'm so proud of you. I've seen you come such a long way, and I'm so glad that I'm here to celebrate your 50th wedding.
I'm very excited about Maria, the Korean Bride project. It's a really interesting performance piece that highlights and brings to question marriage in America.
Thanks a lot. It's been great following you these many years and really learning and watching your own bravery in going through with this over and over again.
My husband's lucky that I went through one for him. I think people have it backwards. They say weddings are fun and marriage is work. I think it's the other way around. And I can say that after 5 years of marriage, the wedding was a lot more work than my marriage.
You spent how long?
9 years.
9 years doing this project.
That's got to be a wild journey for you, and we're so happy that you've reached this point. And number 50.
Okay. Okay. Expecting lots of questions now. Okay. Well, why don't we start with the woman behind you who hasn't spoken yet, and then we'll come back to you.
You went through 50 different ceremonies.
That's right.
Right? And I wondered, and some of them were obviously very intricate, and some were not. Right?
Very quick.
As you were going through those journeys, did you have a sense of emotional process in terms of the ceremonies themselves, and if so, could you talk about that?
You know, every state is so different. I did have, in the beginning, I did have storyboard. I knew exactly what type of person I wanted to marry and how the ceremony should be like. And if, I mean, I had everything, I had all the criterias. And then I realized, wow, it's all about letting go. It's all about letting other people come along, rescue me, and help me, and seeing that, and see how that works out. So it took me a long, long time to realize just that. So and then I realized I don't have to go to local bar to find grooms. I could go to Craigslist. I could ask my friend. I could ask someone's uncle, you know, in Minnesota because he's got a cousin or family in Nebraska. So I realized there are different ways. I don't have to do everything by myself. So yeah, so that the process is still a fascinating thing for me. And that's why you see the camera is different, looks different from state to state. Sounds different state to state. So yeah. So I finally accepted it after all these years. It's the imperfection I've learned to embrace. So yeah, so I'm still digesting what that process is.
One of the things that's so striking in your film is the variety, the creativity of the wedding rituals. Was that more than what you thought you'd find when you started out? How much did you push the envelope yourself? How much of that was very creative clergy people out there?
Like I said in the beginning, that's why the beginning states were not included so much in here other than just photos. Because I look at the video and I go, wow, it's like giving birth, you know? And I realize when you leave it, when you trust the other people and you leave it to their hands, something magical happens. And that's what happened here. And, you know, the only criteria is I get me a real reverend, if I could help it, and a single person. That was very important to me, that he or she be not married when we were actually going through the motion, because I believed that it was going to show in film if he was or she was truly married. So that was my only criteria. And then everything else was, you know, happy thing.
Okay, you've been very patient. Yeah.
Well, we also had questions back
Oh,
there,
oh,
but
we
it's
did?
okay.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
guys, come on forward. Yeah.
Yeah, line up, queue up.
So, did you get marriage certificates after each marriage? And also, if you did you have any trouble with the law?
Well, the marriage certificate, I wanted to collect them all in 50 states. Like, in Las Vegas, they were dying to give it to me, because in Las Vegas, I got married twice. I had third offer from the, I think it was Caesar's Palace. They offered me to get married on gondola, which would have been a $1,000 package for free. So I had something good going there. But then I realized in Mississippi, they require you to get blood tested, and even if my partner and I look nothing alike. And I just couldn't bear to be in Mississippi for 2 weeks just to get the certificate. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I have to get it sealed by the judge. And then I have to go through the divorce. And I just said, forget it. So I don't have it. So it's not, I hate to disappoint you, it's not legally binding.
Thanks.
I'm back. Hi, sorry. So in your video, you said a lot of people love it, some people hate it, some people don't know what to make of it. Tell us about the controversial aspects of it, of your project, what the negative reactions were, what were some of the things that people said?
Oh. They were not pretty, that's for sure. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. A lot of criticism, I think it comes from the fact that they think I'm making a mockery of marriage institution and my love of Korea. They think I hate my dad so much that I must hate being Korean American. So that conversation comes up. And then in addition to that, they accuse me of being a gold digger. And even in New York City, because I sold a raffle ticket, $5 each, they think that I made thousands and thousands of dollars. And the reality is I think I only sold 30. And 20 of them backed out at the last minute. So I'm just like, I don't even know how much profit I made, and very little. So yeah, so those are some of the comments. And then they think it's a quick, easy way of getting laid, you know, 50 honeymoons. Why not? So I've been called many, many things. But I realized, wow, if that's the only level of conversation they're willing to have with me, what do you do from that point on? Some things are better not continued. But at the same time, if I did give you a little bit of break for you to think about marriage, love, life in America, then I've done my job as an artist. Because art is not about when you love it or you hate it. It's about you looking at something going, okay, let me look at this in a different way. So it's about thinking, I think. So yeah, so that's my conversation, and that's been the case all along. But the hatred comments, you know, I can't control it. And they keep coming. You know, just the other day, this guy on Twitter, he said, what kind of performance art is that? So I made an effort to communicate with him, because now that 50 Wedding was over, I had a little bit more time. And after that, at the end of the day, I explained, I said, clearly I made you think. I provoked something from you. And then he said, explain a little bit more. I said, art is a way of communicating. And at the end, he sent me a private message, and he said, I got it. I got it now. So to me, that was a happy moment. But yeah, I don't want to go back to the hatred comment, because there are just so many. Yeah.
I'm enjoying watching, and there's so many thoughts that I have. But as funny as so much as this is, in America, we are free to choose. However, there are many parts of this world where young girls at the age of 10 are still being forced to marry. So my question then to you, and we were talking about I work a lot in women's rights. And I come from a Greek family and very young. There is pressure in America, but I had a mother who said, never, never go with someone that you don't want to be touched by. And this thought has always permeated a lot of what I have done in my own travels. And the question also then would be to you, did this come up in any of the conversations that people ever think of? What is it like? This young man that was here talked about an arranged marriage in America. And yes, there are men that are forced, but we have to think thousands of years of young women that were being told this is the way you have to be, this is your duty, who, if you read Greek poetry, many young girls actually chose to kill themselves. Yeah. And there's a lot of suicide that's not recorded. So yes, and there are films on YouTube about young girls in India preparing for marriage, being happy. And then you talk to the young girls later who, what it was in a way legalized rape. So not to keep on that, but what I find so beautiful about your film is that you're not making commentation, but you take this stance, this very sort of traditional looking down of acceptance. And was this a part of any of your journey's conversation in yourself and with other people? Sorry for the long thing, but you know it's a very, very, with all the fun, it's a very serious situation of women getting to choose what they do with their bodies and their hearts.
Oh, believe me, I mean, I want to just add to that. I mean, besides my dad being my main inspiration for the project, I've heard so many stories. Korean Americans, I remember I was at a job interview. I thought at that time I wanted a full-time job so my dad would approve of my existence. And when it was a art dealer, consultant, secretarial position. And when I had gone in, she said, "Oh, you're Korean." And then I said, "Oh, how did you know? I'm glad you didn't say I look Chinese." And then we're chit-chatting right away, and she goes, "Are you married?" And I'm thinking, gosh, this is part of job interview? It's like I've never left my living room, my parents' house. And then I said, "No, I am not." And I said, I don't know how the job interview went, but basically at the end she said my former secretary, she had to leave in an emergency situation because her parents had a set up arrangement for her to get married in Korea. And she was one of those quiet girls. She was afraid to speak up even if she lived in America. I guess her parents were in Korea at the time. So she had to quit her job at the last minute. Is this something that I should expect of you? And when she said that, I just said, oh my God, I'm exact opposite, if anything, but tell me more about her. And that story was a fascinating topic for me. And then it made me think a little bit deeper and more about it. As far as my gesture, me respecting Korean culture, I mean, I chose to wear hanbok, the traditional Korean outfit, because it was my opportunity to learn from each other, different culture that exists within America. And so I thought, why not wear hanbok? My mother designed it. She made this for me when I was officially 30 years old. I guess she realized the wedding was not anywhere near future, but instead she made me this beautiful hanbok, and I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with this? And at the same time, I realized, wow, I'm going to wear this every state and really create an opportunity to learn from one another. So I chose to wear that, and then the moment I put it on, it changed me. My attitude changed. And then I realized, wow, I actually do love Korea. And how do I talk about that issue? And that was my way of looking down and looking subservient as much as I do, and really honor my ancestors. Because I'm told I'm also 38th generation Yoon. You know, we come a long way. So I wanted to also think about that. What does that mean to be that 38, number 38? Yoon in the family. And so it's another way of looking at that and carrying the dialogue. So yeah, and I'm glad I worked hanbok throughout, as much as I hated it, because it was heavy, it was dragging, it was just too much of everything. You know, people wanted to know more. You know, they would ask me, why purple, why red, what are those 3 dots on your face? So it ended up becoming a much bigger topic than I had anticipated.
About forced marriage, because yes, this is true. There are places in the world where people really are forced. There were times in Korea, in East Asia, where women were very, very young, and they were assumed to have no opinion, and things happen. You do this or you starve. However, one of I mentioned early modernity and this change, the housewife, the breadwinner, that this is actually a modern construct. The other big change with marriage that you see across the East Asian map, and you do see some equivalents in South Asia, is the idea that an arranged marriage means someone introduces you, you check each other out, and you may decide to meet again after that first meeting. But it's set up so that if somebody really gives you the creeps, you don't have to marry them. You have that first meeting, and it's orchestrated in such a way that there's very face-saving ways of ending the relationship right there. You know, like, well, she's thinking of going abroad, or he's really busy right now, you know. She's nice, but he's really busy right now. And everybody gets the message. What is mildly coercive in that situation is the fact that, one, until very recently, these were men and women who had not spent a lot of time socializing in guy-girl groups. And so they're very bashful. They really don't know a lot what to do. So they are not going to know each other terribly well on the basis of a few dates after an arranged meeting. And the other thing, of course, is family pressure. You know, gee, do we have to go through yet another one of these arranged meetings? It's like, again, the real estate, the house that's been on the market too long and people are suspicious. So there is pressure, but it's a much more oblique pressure than the way the system once worked. And that needs to be factored in. There's a whole lore that goes into high comedy in Korea about these arranged meetings and what happens.
But that also brings me a conversation that I had with one of the reporters here in New York. She said, I really love your project. And I said, why? And she goes, what do you think I live in, America? And I said, I don't know, better opportunities? I don't know. And she said, because I wanted to avoid getting set up and to settle down with someone. So I thought her answer was, wow, I didn't realize she was doing it, she was handling it in that manner.
Yeah, she's on the run.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
After getting married to 50 different American men, do you have any plan on getting married to, well, of course, as a project, getting married to a Korean man that your parents would pick as a, like counter-cultural experience?
That question gets asked all the time, and I say wait until my documentary is finished, and then you'll see it. So more reason to stay tuned. Although I have to say, my mom stopped asking me. And my dad, in the beginning of the short, that was my mom and dad talking from third person's point of view. I don't know why my mom did that. But, he's still, I think my dad is still hopeful that one day, even if I'm 60 or 70, I'll tie the knot. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't really have a definite answer to that question. Although I do think marriage is a beautiful thing.
But wasn't your question posed for research purposes? Would you consider doing this kind of wedding with a Korean man?
If he's the one, sure, but less complicated. Just me and him, and that's it.
Yeah. No, I mean a conceptual art wedding. Or is that not the point of the project?
No.
Yeah.
No. I think there's an undertone of this project as well. I think divorce rate is so high, and that was another thing that I realized. So that's my way of bringing that topic in addition to getting married. So yeah, you have to stay tuned.
Hi. So actually, my parents, they were introduced, and they had met a lot of other people, and they actually got married within 1 week of meeting each other. But I'm really lucky that they are actually one of the happiest couples I know. They still go on dates. It's also very rare. I do have also Indian friends who are introduced, and they have the opportunity of saying no or saying yes. Just wanted to see if you had kind of experienced or heard stories of the other side of the spectrum of, I don't know, just happier stories from those kind of quick decisions. Obviously, there are issues with that. But I have also met couples who, through introductions, are happier than those who have the opportunity to choose.
Yeah, I've heard. Not all of my friends confess, but because they're afraid that I might use it for the documentary, but they say they love it when their parents set them up. They said it's easier so they don't have to go on Match.com or any other places, and it's less aggravation. And they're, you know, I think, Ram, I'm going to put you on a spot. My 50th groom. I think your parents tried to set you up too at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was...
At some point.
At some point.
But then he had option to say no,
yeah,
right?
It was never seriously pursued.
But I've heard, yeah, successful stories. It worked out for them. And I don't know. And then there are those, I personally I got set up as well. That was another factor because I just couldn't take it anymore after seeing 5 different guys. And every one of them, anyway, I don't want to confess in front of when it's live webcast. But the bottom line, clearly we had different vision. So, yeah, so it didn't work out for me, but I've heard now, more than ever before, it's working out beautifully for some.
One of the things that struck me about Korean matching up, both from the perspective of the people getting married and from the perspective of their parents, is that in general, there seemed to be much more of an instrumental sociological sense, an ability to imagine if these two people from these two backgrounds with these two temperaments get together, this is what will happen. That this American sense of you fall in love and this is the one seems just kind of hopelessly naive. You hear horror stories on both sides, but there is another story. There is, matchmaking wouldn't exist to the degree that it does if it didn't have a certain logic to it as well.
But then it also occurred to me, I had a lot of matchmakers throughout the States because I had the certain vision, I wanted a musher, I wanted a Polynesian dude, and I got them. So, there's a twist there.
And I think this will be the last question.
How did your conception of marriage evolve throughout this project?
What do you mean, the conception?
Well, do you think differently about marriage as an institution now than you did before you started? Are there things about marriage or that type of relationship between a man and a woman or a woman and a woman that you learned and somehow felt differently after doing this 50 times?
Honestly, that's a good question. Honestly, I'm still learning because I realize marriage to some is completely different from how I view it. And it's how they make it work for themselves. And I think I even said it to during one of the interviews. It's like marriage. You have to find that secret recipe, and once you've found that recipe, you learn to nurture it and work with that. And everyone's recipe is going to be completely different, and that's what makes your relationship so unique. And so I'm still learning. I haven't had I don't have a clue. And but I do know marriage is a wonderful thing, and it worked for some. And it doesn't work well for others, but it's part of, I guess, it's part of societal expectation or how some people view it as. Whatever decision they make along the way, I think they have to find that key for themselves because I don't know. I'm not a scholar, but I've heard stories, and I'm a storyteller, so that's all I could do from my point of view.
That's a good note to end on. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming out, and thank you, Korea Society, Dr. Kendall.
So thank you, Dr. Kendall, and thank you, Maria, so much for sharing your project with us. I can't wait to see the final product. My name is Claudia Pack, and I am the Development Officer at TKS, and I want to thank you all for coming here tonight. I hope you enjoyed the discussion, and the evening is not over yet, so we invite you to stay for some wine and cheese and to continue the conversation with Maria and Dr. Kendall. If you enjoyed this evening, please consider joining our Young Professionals Network, and thanks to you guys who already have. We have flyers in the back, and feel free to ask me if you want to learn more more about it. We are also co-hosting a Korean film series at MoMA beginning next Thursday. And for being here tonight, you'll all receive 2 complimentary tickets to a movie of your choice. So please sign up in the bag where the food and drinks are. Thank you.
Thank you.